today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the Product Manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And this is our weekly webinar where we cover off... Why did that not work? Where we cover off frequently asked questions about the CI Tools. We cover off how to use certain tools sort of from scratch. We look at information about updates, basically anything to do with the CI tools. We cover them during these sessions. This week we are going to be looking at two different topics. The first one is that we are going to talk about the coverings tool update. I talked about this last week about the new features that were in it. This week I just want to talk a little bit about the other implications of the update, because as you may know, if you've already got it, it has changed the way that the existing coverings work and that sort of thing. So I'll just talk about what's going on there and what you can expect and that sort of thing. And then in the second half of the webinar, I had a couple of questions this week about the Windows Scheduler tool, which I didn't cover in the previous Windows session. So we're going to cover that part of the tool as well. So we'll create some Windows schedules. We'll look at how you can change the way that they look and that sort of thing. But yeah, let's start with coverings. As usual as well, if you have any questions, please just enter those in the chat panels. I'll be checking on them every 5 to 10 minutes or so. So if you do have something that you want to ask there, I will see that at some stage and I'll either answer it live here or if it's a larger topic, we'll cover it in a future webinar session. But yes, the coverings update. So just very briefly, what the new coverings is we released a new update to the coverings tool, which changes quite a lot of things. I'm just going to delete the existing coverings here so that I can quickly show you the new one for anyone who doesn't have that yet. So I'll just select my walls and I'll apply coverings just like normal. And you will see we have two objects available here for the coverings. This is the new covering object, so I'm going to choose that one. And just very, very briefly, the main changes that you'll see here is that the interface has changed. So the split configuration is up in the configuration settings here. You can choose what splits you want to have applied to your wall covering. And then the menu itself has been what would be the word? It's been made smaller, basically, or more concise, rather, so that it's easier to find what you want to get to. And then once you get into the setting for those, each of the sort of logical parts that go with it are also available as tabs inside each UI page. This is roughly similar to what will happen in the roof covering as well. And the main other thing that you may notice while you're working through here is that all of the coverings now use building materials. So this was the significant new feature that made us need to do a bunch of changes to the tool, is that we wanted to make it so that all of the coverings are made out of building materials now. So you can generate a building material schedule out of your project, and it will now include all of the volumes from the parts of that that are in any coverings that you have. So for instance, if you wanted to generate a schedule so that you could see all of the usage of plastic in your project, and you place a roof covering that has a gutter on it and you set that gutter to be made out of plastic, it will schedule the volume of plastic that is used in that guttering into your component schedule that shows the building materials. So that was the main reason that we did the change, and so you will see this building material option in all of the coverings now. They can all be overridden with the surface below so that you can still show a different color on them. So this one in this case, we've got weatherboards that are made out of plywood building material, but they are still showing as purple, so it's overriding the surface. If you turn this off, they will use the surface of the building material. So there's a bunch of changes in the way the user interface works. They mostly everything is where it was before, so these look the same as they did before, but the way that you get to the sub-elements of them is, rather than going into multiple sub-menus here, you just click on the tabs in here instead. So that's the new coverings tool. And one of the main things that you will notice once you start using the new coverings tool is that there are now two coverings objects available for the wall covering and the roof covering. So you can see at the moment I'm using Ci Tools wall covering, which is probably what you would expect the covering to be called. And you'll also see that we have this extra object here called deprecated wall covering, and this is the existing wall covering. So in this case with a wall, but if you use a roof, there'll be a deprecated roof covering as well. We'll look at that in a second. And essentially this is the object as you had it already before you installed this update. We've incorporated some bug fixes into this object, but other than that, it's essentially the same object you already had. And you can continue using this if you already have coverings that are placed in the project. You don't have to migrate to the new object. You can do if you want to, but you don't have to migrate to this one at all. So if you open up a project that already had roof or wall coverings placed in it, they will now be using the deprecated wall covering, and that will work in the same way that it always has. So you'll see this interface here, which is just here to make sure that you know what is going on. It's not taking away any of the features or anything like that. It's just important that you know that what is going on. So we put this screen up here so that you can tell what's going on. So essentially it's just telling us that the library part is deprecated, and we encourage you to use the new one because we're placing a new element at the moment. It will say that. If you are selecting one that's already there, the wording's slightly different, but it says essentially the same thing. So it says you can use the wall covering here like normal, and then it says down at the bottom here, if you prefer to use the deprecated wall covering, just click this button. So that's what we're going to do. So we just hit the edit settings button, and then it will go back to completely the normal way. So you have your menu with all of the things in the spots where you would expect them to be, and the tool works the same way as it ever has done. So we've got our weatherboards, we can set the surfaces and that sort of thing. And the same will apply to the roof covering as well. So we'll just place that. I'll just jump on my 3D view so that we can grab one of those roof coverings easily enough. Okay, so if I open up my roof covering here, this one was already placed. So it tells me that this is deprecated now. So the library part's deprecated. We encourage you to use the new one. If you want to transfer the settings into the new one, here's how to do it. So you probably already know about this anyway. Just hit Control and Alt or Command and Option to inject the settings into the new covering, and that will migrate it for you effectively. And it has a note here. Because of the way that the geometry of the roof is handled, some of the settings may change. So if you are going to do this with existing coverings, you shouldn't have too much problem, but there are certain cases with the way that it deals with edges where it may not migrate cleanly, which is why we're saying you can still use the old one. You don't have to migrate to the new one at all. And that means you don't have to worry about figuring out what's going on with your edges anymore. So, and you can go ahead and press the Edit Settings button and continue to use this as normal. It still works as normal. Or you can come over here and you can say Command Option, in my case, inject into the new covering, and then hit OK, and we are now using the new covering. So you can see it has, it looks essentially the same as it did before, except that the surface has changed. And the reason for that is because it is using a building material now. So it has chosen one by default. It doesn't know what you'll want to use. So it just gets one that is, I think, the closest in the index in your project to what you were using before. What are we actually using here? Shingles. Let's put some roof tiles there instead, and then we will override it. Nope. Okay, no, we won't override it. There we go. Using these, so let's do golden beige for one and orange for another. And that takes us back to roughly looking like what we had before. Oh, I was a little bit off with the surfaces there, but close enough. So that is one of the options that you can do if you want the new features that are in the new object. So for instance, if you want the building materials or some other new way that it works, you can migrate those easily enough. Otherwise, just forget about the new object for now and just hit Edit Settings and continue on your merry way, effectively. One of the things that, if you have already installed this in the last week or so, you may have noticed is that if you are using the deprecated object, we had a bug in the release that we made, which made it so that you couldn't, if you were using a style, so for instance on this roof covering, I am using a style called shingles, it wouldn't let you set the appearance here. So these were all grayed out because they were locked by the style. Which is how styles work in the new covering object. However, it shouldn't have gone back into the old covering object as well. So we have released a new update last night, which basically fixes it so that these aren't locked anymore. So if you're using the deprecated object, you can still continue to use styles in here as normal, and it won't change the surface or the pen that you're using on those. So you can still change the colors of them while keeping the style at the same thing. So if you hit that problem over the last couple of days, just update your coverings and this will fix that problem. There was also a bit of an issue where you couldn't set the surface of downpipes, and that's also fixed in the update as well. So if you hit that problem, you can update to get that fixed as well. Obviously, because the new object is quite a change in terms of the user interface, we are keen to hear from you about what you think of the way that it works and that sort of thing. So one of the problems that I hit just now was that I was using a style and I was pressing the button to change it, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. And the reason why is because that now that the object cares about building material, that's kind of a fundamental part of the way that the covering is constructed now, that is saved into the style, which means that its override and its pens are also saved into the style as well. So if you're using the new object, styles will include the building material and the override as well. And the other new feature in the new version, which you may have noticed already, or you will have seen if you saw it last week, is that we've updated the way that the preview works so that you can get a nicer representation of what you're working on, so that you can see what you're actually dealing with and what the changes that you're making in here will look like. As you may know, if you're using the old one, you get this sort of zoomed out view of the whole element, and it means that if you go through and make small changes, like if I were to go in here and set the gutter to actually be a quarter round, you can't really see the effect that that's had on the model when I make that change. Whereas in the new one, if I go through and do something similar, because we are looking at a zoomed in sort of cross-section view, and I change it, you can quite easily see that change. You can also snapshot the area that you're on, so you can sort of zoom into specifically what you want. So if I click the snapshot button, it will zoom right up into the gutter, and as we keep making changes here, you can even more easily see what is going on with what we're doing there. So that should make it much easier to sort of get feedback on what effect is these changes that you make are actually going to have. And then the other kind of cool part to that is that it also affects the way that the favorite works. So now instead of the favorite just showing you that zoomed out view, you'll see the nice up close diagram of what you have there, and if you make changes to it. So we're looking at the gutter, so that's not ideal, but if we changed the way that list looks in an obvious way and we save another favorite, you see that our favorites all show the changes correctly as well. So it will make your library of favorites show give you a bit better representation of what it is that you're looking for. Obviously, while I'm on the topic of favorites, you may have a bunch of favorites saved already using the old object. Those will still work fine with the old object. You don't need to migrate all of your favorites right away. That is probably something you'll want to do at some point. So you can just place a roof or wall covering, select the favorite that you want in the old object, and then migrate that to the new one, check that everything's working okay, and then save out the favorite again. That will be the workflow to do that, but you don't need to do that right away. So if you're worrying that all of your favorites rely on the deprecated wall or roof covering, that's fine. That's not a problem. You don't have to migrate them right away. The deprecated object isn't going anywhere anytime soon, so you'll have plenty of time to figure out when you want to start using the new object. We would recommend, basically, if you have any placed already, keep them as they are, and if you're placing any new ones, try out the new one. If you do have any feedback, please let us know though, because we would love to hear what people think of it and if it's doing the sorts of things that you want to be able to do. So that's the main stuff I wanted to talk about with the covering. Next I'm going to look at the door and window schedule. I'm just going to quickly check for any questions and then we will go on to that. All right, no questions just yet. So I'll jump into the schedules now. So this is the door and window schedule. It's part of our door and window tool. I won't jump into the door and window tool. We covered that as a sort of an intro a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to see that, there's a video available. There's a recording available on the YouTube channel. But what we're going to look at now is just creating a door and window schedule and the sorts of things that we can do with that door and window schedule. So I've got a bunch of doors and windows placed in this project already. I won't look into how those work or anything like that because we've seen that before. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a new schedule. So I'll go to my Ci Tools menu, go down to doors and windows, and I'll open the schedule manager. And this will give us a list of the schedules that are in the project, and it'll let me change the way that those work. And the way that the tool works is that it's going to make a new worksheet for each of these schedules. So the door and window schedules, they make their own worksheet, they place the schedule on them, and then that's where you'll be able to throw that onto a layout and output it and all of that sort of thing. So let's start by making a new schedule. Call it something sensible, door schedule int. So this will be our interior door schedule, and now we can choose what we want to show in the schedule. So this is fairly similar to the way that you would set up a schedule using the built-in ArchiCAD schedules. There is quite a lot of overlap, obviously, between the way our schedule works and the way that the ArchiCAD one does. So I wouldn't necessarily say that if you're using the ArchiCAD scheduler, you need to change to ours. It presents itself in a different way and it has different options available. So if it does this sort of thing that you would like to be able to do, it might be worth a try. But it's not really, what am I trying to say here? It's not going to show you any extra doors and windows that you couldn't already schedule, let's say, or present them in a vastly different way. It's just if this is the sort of style that you like it to look, or if it has some parts of it that you like the schedule notes or something, then you might want to use one of these. But for the most part, a lot of these settings will be similar. So the main one is the criteria, obviously, so we choose what we actually want to schedule. So I've called mine door schedule int, so probably having just doors would make sense. And then if I could remember what all of my ID labeling scheme was in this, I would also set up a filter here to do something like, say, if the element ID starts with an I, then schedule that, because all of my IDs do that for internal ones. That's not the case in this project, I'm fairly sure. It looks like they actually start with a number, so that will give us probably nothing, so I'm going to turn that off, but you can use that as a criteria for your schedule. You can choose a layer combination, so tick this option here and then just press store current layers and it will store whatever the current layer combination is that's available. You can schedule only on a certain story, so you can pick the story that you want or just go with all stories, and you can also filter it by the renovation status of the doors and windows here as well, so you can choose which ones you want to see in here. We've also had some requests recently from people to be able to schedule it by the design option that they're on. Actually, just from, I think, 2 people have asked about that. So we're still not sure if that's something that would be useful to people. So if that is something that you would be keen to see, please do just let us know on a support ticket. That will be helpful to know if that's something that would be useful or not. So that's the criteria, and then on the right here we choose how we want to collate matching items. Again, this is similar to the built-in scheduler. You can choose to collate items that are all the same as each other. So we're going to turn this option on, and we've got some isolation options here, which essentially just let us say, I want to collate items, but in certain cases, I want them to not collate based on something, say for the materials. If you want them to not collate if they are all with a different paint color, but the actual structure is the same, can choose to isolate the materials. I'm going to leave those all off except for orientation, which I will isolate. That's probably what you'll want to do in most cases. And then we'll go through the rest of the options in a second. I'll just generate this view though first, so you can see what it looks like. So it's going to say, I'm going to make a schedule now. Is that okay? We'll say yes, we'll let it build the schedule. Normally you won't see that option that just came up. It's just because this is an older project. And now it will take us to our schedule. So you can see this is the way that it lays things out. So it is primarily based on an elevation view of the doors and windows, and it draws the dimensions onto them here. That's what you're seeing there. And it lists the ID beneath them. So you can see those all listed that way. We've got an empty opening there as well, which is why that is showing. It's not an error. It's literally just an empty opening that was placed, which counts as a door, so it is scheduled. And you can see that we also have this, or hopefully you can see via the screen share, we have this kind of grey outline around the whole thing, and that is the page border, so that it knows what size page it should fit on, and then you can make sure that everything fits inside that margin area. So I'll go back into the settings and we'll just see how the rest of this controls. So Doors and Windows Schedule Manager, you can see the schedule in here. The worksheet is named the name of the schedule, so it's nice and easy to find. And then, yeah, so the layout setting here is what is determining that page border that you can see there. So this one is set to, it's just picking up a list of the masters in your project. So this one's using Blake A1 landscape. If we change that, it will just change the border and it will fit the scheduled elements into whatever size is available. And once you choose the master, then you can go through and set the margin sizes that you want there. The dimensions govern what dimensions we're showing on each of our elements. We've got a few superfluous ones in our case, so we probably want to turn some of these off. So we've got the rough opening not showing at the moment. We've got the overall dimension, that's that big one at the top there. The shape, which is showing the individual parts, especially if you had a different head or base shape. The sash, which is the second one here, you can see it's dividing it up into the sashes, and then the cell height can be dimensioned as well, which you can just see to the side there, and you can have that dimension to the datum label, to show the datum label rather, if you want to as well. And then there's settings for the spacing of the dimensions and the settings for the dimension chains themselves, so you can choose how those are displayed. Let's actually turn off couple of those so you can see what that looks like. And then joinery items controls how each individual piece is displayed. So we've got the option here to show the exterior side. You can choose to show the interior side instead, or to show both. We'll turn on both so that we can see what that looks like, and that just lets you control how that looks. You can choose to have shaded elevations if you like. And then you can choose what we display, what information about it we display. So at the moment we're showing the element ID and the master ID. Master ID isn't being used because I don't have any hot links at the moment, but if you did, it would be showing those underneath them as well. And you can also show the type code, which if you are using styles in your doors and windows, which we covered in a previous session as well, the type code for those will show there. The renovation status, if we were using that, we could show that, and the total number of collated items. So if there are 3 items showing, it will show a 3. And then the rest of the settings are for the font and the color and that sort of thing. And then these control the actual layout of the elements as well. So are they centered? Do we want to show the notes? If we are showing the notes, do we want to show the categories? So I'll just hit OK. It's going to ask me again if I want to update, which I do. And then we will see the new version. So you can see we've got a less going on with our dimensions now. There's a bit more sensible looking, and we're showing the interior and exterior sides. Excuse me. And we've got a little designation here showing us which side is which. still showing our ID at the bottom, which are all very similar to each other. But that gives you an idea of how that will look. And if we were to switch it to Windows, you'll see how those look as well. So if I come back up here and switch it over to Windows instead, say yes, we do want to update, it will go ahead and show us those. Yeah, so you can see our window schedule. So it's works in a very similar way. It's showing us that elevation view. We've got our int.ext display here. And you can see in this case here, we actually have two identical windows. So it is telling us that window 204 and 215 are the same as each other. So it's collated those two together. So that's how that works. And if we had that option to show the total, it would also show a sort of a 2 times at the beginning of it to let us know that there's multiple of those. But that is the door and window schedules. And with these, you can go through and add schedule notes as well. Which again, from the CI Tools menu, Schedule Notes Manager here, we can just open that up. We can create a couple of notes. Obviously, these aren't very sensible notes, but just to show you how they work. And then we will open the Schedule Notes palette, and effectively you can just go through and add the notes to them by selecting them here and adding the notes. And as soon as I add those in by double clicking on them, you see them display right away here. And those are automatically sent back to the model as well. So if you've used an older version of this, you used to have to press a button to send them back to the model. That's automatic now, so you don't need to worry about that. And we can go through and add schedule notes as we like as well. So that is the door and window schedules, which is what I wanted to cover today. I'm just going to check for questions again before we finish up. So if you did have anything you want to ask, let me know. And I will see if I can cover those now. All right, so we've got a couple of questions here. Okay, so one of these is kind of a suggestion to be able to show the door leaf sizes in the schedule. So yeah, as you have gathered by the fact that you're asking that, the sash size will sort of show you that, but it won't show the actual size of the leaf itself. So that's a good idea. I will put that into our request list. And then we've got something that sounds like a bug. So yeah, I'll talk to you about that on a support ticket. And then to change the line type and colors of the schedule elements. So there isn't a control over that in the actual door and window schedule settings here. So if you go into the schedule manager, there isn't a control for the way that those show here, but each of these items can be selected and then you can change those themselves. So we can go through and we can select all of these. They're just objects. Whoops, I grabbed the dimension chains as well. I'll just grab one of these for now, but essentially we can just go select all objects. And in this case, they're called window schedules, but for doors, they'll be called door schedules. And you can see they have a 3D view. We're not interested in that, but they are just a schedule object here. So you can see the controls for those here. So you can come in here and change the way that the the schedule notes, where they will apply and that sort of thing. And then there's controls for the opening. The pens themselves on the windows and doors are just taken from the actual windows and doors themselves, so the orange and that sort of thing. And at the moment, we don't have a way to override that for the schedule, but that is potentially something that we could make it to. yeah, I'll catch up with you after on that one, because yeah, we might be able to, yeah, you could go in here and you could modify the attributes themselves, because it is picking them up just from the door, so you can see those pens there. Obviously messing around in here is probably not the most fun thing ever, but you could do that. But yeah, having an option to say, to override the pens and maybe the lines as well, would make a lot of sense, I think. So yeah, I'll put that in our suggestion list as well. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, so that's not very helpful, I'm afraid, but hopefully I'll catch up with you on support ticket anyway, about your other question, and yeah, I'll put those two suggestions in for our ideas for things that we will put in future versions of the tools. But thanks for your time, everyone, and for your questions. If you do have any other questions that you think of later, that you wanted to ask, or if you've got any topics that you want to see covered in other versions of this webinar, please just log a support ticket, and just say, hey, could you show us how to use tool X, or how to model this certain type of cabinet or something like that. Please just let me know, and that will give me an idea for what I'm going to use in upcoming versions of the webinar. And the recordings for this and all of the previous ones are available on YouTube. Some of you are watching this on YouTube anyway, so you'll be able to see those right away. Anyone else, you can go and find them there as well. And you should be able to see them once this video is over. It will probably load the playlist of the old versions as well, so you can see them there also. But thanks for your time, and I will catch you at the next one. Bye.